In this video, we'll be looking at using the File Age Selector to remove old files. The File Age Selector, or Aged File Selector, is used for two reasons. One is to clean up files older than a specific interval, and the other use would be to delay processing of a file for a specific interval so that something else can process first. In this example, we're going to look at the first instance, or the first case, where we want to clean up a file older than a specific interval. And to do that, I want to open up the eFORMz composer, and I have it open here on the screen. And from there, I'm going to go to Host Tools, and since I'm running a Windows machine, I'm going to select Local Director Toolkit. And once the toolkit's open, and you see here, I already have a configuration file here. In fact, this is the configuration file that we're going to build, but I'm going to go ahead and just go through it from scratch. And it's going to be to delete a file the next day. So I'm going to hold a file for an extra day, and then I want to delete it. So to add a new configuration file, I'm going to select File and New Configuration. And I'm going to, and you can do it one of two ways. You can either right-click and select Add Input Local Directory, or you can use the buttons to the right of the field here, the configuration field, and select local directory. So whichever you're more comfortable with, either way you're going to get the job done. I'm going to call this standard, and this is arbitrary, so you can name this whatever you want. But the input directory is important. I'm going to select the browse button here to the right, and I'm going to use the Minisoft eFORMz 6 input folder. That's where my files that I want to process are located. And I'm going to select OK. And that looks pretty good to go, so I'm going to select OK again, and I have my input directory. The next thing I want to do is I want to do a file selection, so whatever files that are in that directory I want to pull and process. And again, I'm just going to select the Add button here, and it's going to give me file selection. I'm going to wildcard it with an asterisk and select .xml. The files I'm processing are going to be XML files. And we want to select Delete Selected File on the disposition, because I don't want to keep it in that input folder. And we'll select OK. So to this file selection, I'm going to select the Add button over here again, and it's going to ask me to either add a processor or an output process. I want to add a processor, and I want it to be eFORMz. And it's going to ask me for an eFORMz project. And I'm going to select my Browse button to the right here, and the project I want is right here. It's an invoice project here, and I'm going to select OK, and there it is. So that's looking good. The one thing I want to do now is I want to right-click the project and select Add Output Process and Process with eDirect Plus, and I want to send my output to the Minisoft eFORMz 6 output folder, and that's where I want to set. I also want to check Disable Standard Subdirectories, because I don't want subdirectories like print, fax, email, or anything like that. And I'm going to select OK. So that's a pretty standard look at what you would do typically with a file that you just want to process and delete. But I also want to keep the file for an extra day in case I want to reprocess it within 24 hours. You never know. Print job may go bad. You might run out of, have various errors like running out of toner, printer jam, something like that. So I want to keep it for 24 hours. And to do that, I want to put it in a different folder and delete it in the one I have and keep it for 24 hours. And then I want to look at that folder and then delete it after 24 hours. So that is where the File Age Selector comes in. But the first thing I want to do here is, to get that going, is I want to right-click the file selection, and I want to select Add Output Process and File Output. And it's going to ask me for output to a file here, for a file name. What I want to do is I'm going to put input, and I'm going to do this in a relative way. So I'm going to use the backslash here, and input, and then I'm going to give a folder of hold one day, and this is a folder I created earlier. So input hold one day, and then I'm going to put a data file name in carets there, period, and then data file ext, which is short for extension. What that's going to do is that's going to create a file that is going to go to my input hold one day folder with the data file name that it finds, a period, and then the extension, which is, we know, going to be XML. So we'll select OK, and so we now have a data file that's going to go to that particular folder. The next thing I want to do is I want to create another input directory, input folder, where it'll be able to send that file, and that's going to be the hold one day directory. So I'm going to go ahead and just right click and select add input local directory, and I'm going to name this next day, and again, you can name that whatever you want, and the directory is going to be that hold one day directory, input, double click that there, and hold one day, and open, and there we go. Select OK. And then again, I want to do a file selection, so I'm going to right click and select add file selector, and I'm going to wildcard it, .xml, and again I'm going to delete the selected file. But here's where the File Age Selector comes in. Here in Additional File Selector, there's a drop down menu. I want to select File Age Selector, and then I want to select the File Selector properties, and here's where you can determine how long you want it to hang around. I want it to be there for 1 day, and then once it's older than 1 day, I want it deleted. So select if older than, and then 1,440 minutes is a day. I looked that up. Hopefully that's right. But anyway, it's 1,440 minutes, and that's a day, and I want it to delete after that time period. So that looks good. I'm going to select OK. And I want to right click the file selection and select add output process, file output. I want to uncheck create unique file name, and with the browse button to the right here, I'll select that, and I want to go to the Minisoft eFORMz 6 output folder, and I want to select the delete me text file. If you can't find it, just switch to all files on files of type down here. So I want to open this text file. And what this is going to do is this is just going to be overwritten. It's just a placeholder that will be overwritten during this process. And I'm going to select OK. And there we have it. So we've successfully configured the File Age Selector, or Age File Selector, to hold a file for 1 day, or hold several files for 1 day, and then delete them.